Hey, what's up, everyone? You're currently tuned into TBD on KCSB FM 91.9 in Santa Barbara. Today, Lietoc and I are joined by Lake Arrowhead, California, Max MSP Maverick, Tom Hall. Perhaps you know Hall from one of his electronic music releases that range over 20 years, spanning collaborations with Lawrence English, an appearance on The Wire's Tapper 47, or 2021's failed attempts at Silence. But Hall's also got a major CV across the music industry with sound design, music hardware, and programming, custom software, with work for companies and artists like Cycling 74, Ableton, Eventide, Moog, Korg, Roli, Roland. The list goes on. We could be here all days listing it all. How's it going, Tom?
I'm good. Hey, Thomas. Hey, how do I say it? Lietoc. That's an awesome name. I mean, you definitely have me and Thomas covered. We're just straight out of the Bible.
Exactly. I'm glad to I'm glad we could like share our names together right now, Tom. This is pretty sick.
Yeah. Thanks for the intro, Thomas. That's very nice of you. Honestly, I'm just happy to be here still be making sound and somehow be relevant still. Things move so quickly these days. It's definitely at that point in my career where I'm like, wow, I guess I have made it work. I'm still here. I'm still doing stuff. And I never stop being thankful for that.
Yeah, dude, it's cool that you're still able to like play shows and just be so active in the music community. Speaking of like shows and stuff, we met at the what was it? Idlewild Experimental. Yeah, what'd you think of that fest? That was pretty sick.
That was so much fun. Firstly, I just remember driving over there, which was hilarious to me because, you know, I live in the San Bernardino Mountains in Lake Arrowhead, so I live at pretty much the same elevation as where Pete Majors was having the festival there in Idaho. Mm-hmm. And it cracked me up because I was like driving down one mountain across the Inland Empire floor to then go up another mountain to play a show, which was cool. But also, like, so often if I'm playing, you know, local shows, it's 99% of the time it's in LA, right? So it was really fun to be driving to another like beautiful forest location to play a show.
Yeah.
Did you take like the 15 and then take that highway in or whatever the road is?
I believe so. It's basically the first turn off the 10 you can make on the way to Palm Springs. Yeah. I think it's the 15. It's stunning though. Like halfway up, there's a little lake. Which is just, I'm like, this is beautiful. Like, yeah, it's really picturesque. And like, it was cool. That was such a fun festival of music and sound and exploration. P Majors is an old friend, probably the first like friend. Yeah, Pete's probably the first friend I made in Los Angeles. Like,
oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, he worked at, he was the manager of Vacation Vinyl in Sunset Junction, which is now gone. But it was like co-owned by Aaron Turner from ISIS. Yeah, sick. It was and I think some other guys. And so, you know, and at that point, Hydra Head was just down the road, Hydra Head Records.
Oh, yeah.
Had a little office down the road, and I was waiting for I just actually to back it up fresh, and just the previous year ISIS had been on tour in Australia and I'd still lived there. Mm-hmm. And I actually opened up for them.
Was that for Panopticon? Or?
Yeah, Panopticon. Awesome album.
Wow.
I opened up for them in Australia and kind of like became, you know, friends with Aaron and, well, the two Aarons in the band, because Aaron Harris is also the drummer and Aaron Turner was the lead singer. Mm-hmm. And it was, good guys. But I saw that they needed an intern and I had to wait, you know, X amount of months to get a green card when I moved here.
Yeah.
And so you can't work. So I was like, well, I'll just why don't I just hang out at Hydro Records and pack some records for him? And it turned into this great way to get to know the extended community. Because like when I took that intern gig, I didn't know that they had a sister record store just up the road. So part of my job was like carrying up boxes of vinyl in the like Sunset Junction heat to Vacation Vinyl for them to sell. And they had AC. So I would like hang out there and cool off. But working at the record store was Pete Majors, manager, George Jensen, who also played at the festival, and then Gray Holger for Chondriatic Sound.
Okay, sick.
Yeah. So those guys were just like, what are you doing tonight? You want to go to a show? And like, I mean, I don't know. It was 2011 in LA, and then it was just a noise show on every night. There was touring metal bands concert. I mean, I think things were pretty cheap in 2011. Like gas was still pretty cheap and that. Yeah. So there was metal bands from Hydrohead. Things were just going off. I mean, I had no shortage of things to do. And, unemployed waiting for a green card. I was like, well, I'm not going to sit at home. Let's go to shows.
Yeah, that's so sick.
So, I mean, before you were kind of even into like electronic, was metal playing a large part for you? Were you just into that? And then like when you came to LA, you were like, hey, we're going full in on this.
Oh, I've always been into metal. Honestly, metal was probably my first true love. And it was actually, to be honest, hair metal. I grew up in Tasmania, Australia, right? Rural Tasmania, Australia. And I honestly, I would go to the roller skating rink every Saturday morning. I would go to the roller skating rink and just roller skate around. Yeah. And there was, this is mid 80s. There was some older kids there that, I just thought were super cool, as you do. This is pre-internet, pre-everything. Like, and these kids would have these metal. I hadn't even heard the music yet, right? But I remember seeing those classic 80s metal shirts, like a guy getting electrocuted on the back of Ride the Lightning, and like those just obscene Guns N' Roses ones, and like just. I was like, oh man, if something tells me I'm gonna like this music. And like those older kids were super cool because they would like dub cassettes for me.
Oh, sick.
And so I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And my parents were pretty cool too. Like after I hassled them a lot, they bought me some stuff. But I must say also my mom, super diverse listener. My mom would listen to everything from like Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton to like there was Black Sabbath records in their collection.
Oh, sick.
So I obviously went through the whole collection, find what I like. My dad had Black Sabbath cassettes in the garage, so they'd go in the cassette player. Metal was definitely a big, and something about like, Tasmania, dark, like industrial, blue collar area that I grew up in, metal was pretty big. So yeah, that was definitely a passion. And then from there, finally the whole electronic music thing came along because, in early college life, I'd go to the metal shows, and then my friends who were into electronic music before me were putting on like drum and bass shows and stuff, but the drum and bass shows would run later. And so I was a young Australian boy that liked to drink. So, I'd go to the metal show. That'd finish early. I'm like, well, I want to keep drinking. So I'd go to my friend's drum and bass show. I didn't care about the music, but at times I was like, oh, actually, I really like this music. And they were super cool. They would introduce me to all sorts of stuff. So like, it's one of the first electronic albums I remember having was like, the Warp compilation, Artificial Intelligence.
Oh, sick, dude.
And like, what an introduction to, I still have it. Oh, yeah.
Yep. And This US one is missing a Speedy J cut, and they just leave silence. They just put silence on it, and it's like, what? And then it just goes into the orb.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, because I actually found a really old hard drive just a few years ago when I was home back in Australia from my college days. And yeah, there's these MP3s on there and that of music that friends had given me. Like, hey, we think you'll like this. And I was like, wow, they really set me off on the right foot.
Yeah.
Like,
I wanted to scale back just a couple steps there, because metal especially at the end of the 80s, you have really great industrial metal coming. It's like I have like right to my side, it's like the KMFDM and like the Ministry and and Godflesh. And I'm also wondering, like, were you also hearing that? And then from there also with like the drum and bass, like what year were that kind of?
So for Godflesh and that kind of stuff, I'll be like, honestly, retroactively discovered that wasn't really making it to my, I think it was maybe a little challenging for the area I grew up in.
I see, because that makes sense with that.
I definitely as close as I got to there I was conscious of Ministry. Obviously, 9 Inch Nails, Downward Spiral just blew the hell up. Like, I would listen to a radio station called Triple J, which was nationally broadcast. Somewhere in my mid high school years, finally it came to us to Tasmania, because there was a while where we couldn't even pick it up in Tasmania.
Oh, interesting.
And that was huge, especially because they would have these late night, midnight, 3 a.m. in the morning shows where you could really get the down low, like, you know, dark stuff. So the good stuff, the truly experimental stuff. That was definitely influential. And again, I remember my mom taking me to high school and like playing 9 Inch Nails, and I want to like Yanamo, and I'm just like, oh, this is a bit weird and embarrassing. And I'm riding with my mom. My mom wouldn't turn it off. She was pretty cool.
No, it's funny because I had like a similar experience where by again that point, like I remember being like 6 to 8 years old, and I've been revisiting some of the 9 Inch Nails catalog, and like the early singles on Pretty Hate Machine up through like Closer. That's like alternative radio, like mainstream.
Yeah,
that became both of those albums were massive touch points.
Yeah.
Like Gen X or Millennial, and it just, to me, I'm like, oh, these songs have just been with me all my life now. I'm like a kid of that.
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned the Max MSP work, which I still do quite frequently for different artists and the likes. And one was I actually got called up to do some Max programming for Trent.
Damn, that's sick, dude.
Yeah, and that was like, you know, part and parcel of being in this weird quasi position I am in the music industry is that, I've met a bunch of celebrities and whatever. And generally it's on a like very neutral base, right? They need something, I can give it to them. I can do it for them. So it's I never really, but man, meeting Trent, I had a whole out of body experience just outside his place. Like, I was all cool about it. I went over there and I'm outside and like pressed the buzzer to get into his like his compound he has with his studio and all this. And the security guy lets me in. And I thought the security guy would walk me to where I had to go, but he just kind of told me where I had to go. So I had to do it on my own. I just remember all of a sudden just feeling so weird, like a wave of, I don't know. I was like, holy shit, am I going to like freeze? What am I going to do? And it was really funny as I walked in the corner and they're all hanging out, having a break. Trent's having a smoke. Atticus is there having a smoke. And Trent is the first guy sees me who just walks over and is like, hey, I'm Trent Reznor. And this immediately I just remember, like, I never remember being nervous again after that, because immediately the smart ass Australian in me wanted to say, yeah, I know who the fuck you are. But instead I was just like, hey, Tom Hall, nice to meet you. And it was like, that was it. I don't even remember being nervous after that. But yeah, it was really weird. It was just this split second because I was like, holy crap, I used to listen to this in high school. I never imagined I'd be doing like some work for this guy. So,
and also again, it's like over the years, he's become so down to earth. I remember like as a kid hearing a radio interview and it's like, he just sounded like middle-aged guy, just like happy.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah, just gotta like do this.
And that's honestly been my experience with meeting honestly most of these guys. I mean, it's like I remember sitting there in the studio and him and Atticus are arguing about timing in a piece of sound, and I'm just like, oh my god, they're just like me. They're just like we're just total nerds.
Yeah.
Like, we just love sound. That was actually really cool. Like, and, I look around, obviously it's got a really nice mixing desk and, the best monitors in the industry you can buy, but a lot of the gear he's using is just the same as what I see everyone else using, same modular system for make noise, same this, same that.
Yeah.
When did you get to meet him? I'm just curious, like year time frame.
2018.
Oh, okay.
So, and I did it. I don't know how. I mean, I'm not under an NDA anymore, but like, yeah, it was basically like program a very unique custom Max thing that integrated with hardware. And it was really successful. It came out really great. It's not a one box ticks all kind of thing, but like it's a process it's a way to process sound in a very unique way, and they've used it on a lot of films like Gone Girl, The Social Network, all the classics they've gotten.
Oh wow.
And it's the only thing they use. It's part of the process of
and that was in 2008, you're saying
2018.
Oh, did that
2018? So like 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that was like, this went on, I probably was there 6 months or so, went over to his studio several times, and yeah. Pretty straightforward.
One other artist, because Thomas and I were chatting before, your work with Will.i.am as well. Some of the stuff I'm curious, just like in this decade, like what you've done for Will.i.am and then the Black Eyed Peas.
So that wasn't even sound related. That's technology related.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's a big technological kind of character, always wanting to do stuff. And they have a production tech guy on staff, or he has a production tech guy on staff. Mm-hmm. They wanted, this was some like interactive hand gesture recognition with the, the leap motion. It's a little square, the leap, it's called leap, LEAP, as in jump, leap motion. It's a little box that can recognize hand gestures.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a whole thing surrounding that. That was really early days of that. And that leap motion went on to be like, I think Asus, one of the big computer companies, ended up finally buying them and
wow.
Integrating it into their computers. But yeah, he's wild. I mean, that was pretty wild. Like wanting to do hand recognition stuff that could do all sorts of things, from unlock doors to like
that is crazy.
Yeah, so imagine you do a certain hand signal, right? And it creates a trigger that then can tell an Arduino to like, change a lock, unlock a door, relock a door.
So
one of the scenarios they gave me, this is kind of funny. Like they're like, yeah, so imagine we're over here and we've got Chris Brown in here doing sessions, and he's drunk, and we don't want him to be able to get into all of the rooms. So we're going to lock him out of some rooms so that he can't get in. He doesn't have access to everything. And we want a special hand gesture that can unlock some doors. He was so wild.
That is insane.
Like, oh what is happening here? Like, but yeah, I mean, I sometimes, and I even forgot about some of this. Like, I just, nothing like this is the world of Max MSP though, right? So, I use it to make audio and design systems for myself personally.
Yeah.
Sequencing, be it hardware, be it sound, be it MIDI. And I also use it for my visuals, right? Predominantly. But it gets used so much for so many other things. And I've heard a lot of the scenarios, so many of the weird, crazy scenarios where Max ends up that nothing really surprises me anymore. Like BMW use it for prototyping their in-car systems. NASA use it for like processing data, like big data sets of volcanic activity on Mars.
And this is really just because like it's a language.
It's a language and it's accessible in that it's not like, the bar of entry is lower than say learning C++ or something like that, I think. So, it's pretty, but on the other hand, it's customizable. So if you want to, you can make your own Max MSP object with C++. So,
that's crazy.
It's a very powerful, I think Max is like the ultimate conduit, like it can fit into every workflow almost in some way or another. And if you want to maintain flexibility, I mean, the beauty of Max is that it's very easy to change. It's not compiled down to a single thing in the end, right? It maintains it'll be a working system, but it maintains its flexibility. So you can change something at the last minute without needing to rebuild an entire piece of software. And that's probably the real power of it, right? And I think that's why a lot of people really like it and kind of gravitate towards it. It's like it kind of grows with you as well,
For sure.
And on the other hand, you'll probably never outgrow it. There's just so much to explore.
It's really go ahead, Maddie. What are you saying?
Oh, no, you go first, Thomas.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's like really interesting to hear that like people like NASA would use it to process data sets. Like you'd think that those people would know like Python or something and have like a Python library that could like handle their data. I guess that they would,
But here's a great example, right? So you've got a guy, a computer, a scientist. I'm not sure exactly, like, he specializes in volcanic activity, and he doesn't want to have to go and get a programmer in NASA or leverage a NASA. Like, so he's like, hang on, I can kind of try some of this out for himself. And that was the scenario with that guy where he was like, what's the minimal viable thing I can do to take this insane data set and sonify it? He wanted to sonify it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because an interesting thing about big data is, right, it's particularly volcanic activity, is it for a lot of the time, the changes are so tiny, right? And unless it's erupting, right, then the changes are drastic. But like typically it's just rumbling away, and there's tiny changes, and it's really hard to represent those data unless you're trained in big data, unless you're used to looking at these insane data sets. The average person can't discern differences even across years. But most people have the ability to hear the tiniest of pitch changes. This guy worked out that he could take these big data sets, sonify it, and actually convey these kind of changes in the volcanic activity to anyone really by just playing sound back from the data sets.
Dude, that is insane.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant because even without any musical training, most people can hear, a few hertz in a pitch change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. Yeah.
No, totally. So that's how it kind of creeps in, Max. It's funny, It's like
it's like because I was looking at like an article on like the history of it, and you see the original software disk. And it's got such goofy 90s art on it. It does not. It's for like, it's a one-man band kind of like having a fun thing. And I'm curious for you, when you first heard about it, when you were kind of just getting started as it, what was that world like?
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely heard about Max a lot before I finally went into it, and it's been demystified a lot in this decade, and I think it helps that younger generations are coming up who have had a computer or an iPad or some kind of technology in their hands since they've been born, right? And so people are not as intimidated by technology anymore. But when I, was in my late teens and I first heard about it, and I remember seeing it and was like, whoa, that, immediately that looks complicated. And I do have a suspicion now, looking back on that time and remembering that there was if you'd kind of gotten a grip on Max, there was a bit of gatekeeping going on in terms of like making out you were doing something that, was way smarter than anyone else could do. And I'm not going to say Max is easy, because I think that would also be like misrepresenting what you need to do and the effort you need to put in to use it. But I think most people could use it. But there was definitely some gatekeeping going on, which just added to the intimidation of approaching it. And then on top of that, we were talking like late 90s, early 2000s. I forget how much it was. It wasn't cheap. Software was a lot more than it is now. And you didn't have things like subscriptions. I think, now it's $10 a month is the cheapest you can get into it. And I'm like, well, I probably would have tried it much sooner if there was an option back then. But yeah, so I dove in. And so I was conscious of it, but and I'm not sure I even knew what it was to begin with. Like I would see it over people's shoulders on some really primitive laptops and at sound shows and that. And then finally I ended up I went to study abroad from Australia in Japan.
Oh, wow.
And actually my major, my actual qualification is photography. And I got to Japan and they didn't have a photography department. They put me in video and sound studies, second year class in college level. So I was really in the deep end. I remember I had an interest in video. So they were putting me in After Effects class and Premiere and stuff. Which I was excited about, but I was also in a Pro Tools class, and it's just like, what is going on here? And I was in a J-pop recording session.
Dude, that's sick, actually.
I know. I was like, whoa, this girl's incredible. Listen to her sing.
At the same time, I'm assuming you're able to connect to the internet. Or were
yes. Japan had insanely good internet back then. This was, very early 2000.
Were you on any place like 2chan, or were you in any listservs for raves and other kind of electronic stuff?
A little bit, mainly as a consumer, than more I didn't really get my first PC, my own PC that wasn't a shared family PC, until 2001. 2001. And then I started playing around a bit with sound, for sure. But yeah, in Japan, this was the big change, was the sensei noticed that I came from a more experimental, conceptual photography background, right? Somehow he joined all the dots and asked me to come to his office, and I'll never forget, because I thought I was in trouble. I thought I'd messed up somehow. That was what the story I was telling myself when I came to his office, and he showed me Max MSP and talked me through it, and even showed me how to reset my system clock so that I could keep restarting the demo, so I didn't have to.
Dude, that's sick.
Didn't have to purchase it for a while.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was real. And he also gave me some really great Max MSP patches to get started with that just kind of did a thing. One of them just allowed me to load esoteric, weird VST plugins. So yeah, it just really set me off on this exploration then. And I haven't stopped using it ever since. So
I found it interesting that you also brought up the gatekeeping aspect, because it's not like I've searched for like Max MSP in interviews, but I've read stuff like Labels Unlimited, which covers a few different 2000 labels, and they have one on Warp, and so they talk about Audtecher, and there's a few like key like late 90s, early 2000s Audtecher quotes like, we're not using Max MSP, we're not doing this right now, we've got our system, like yes, we played around with it, but like they're like kind of trying to stay off. And then I'd seen you mention the artist Finesse, but like this album's like a real big kind of crossover moment for another generation, and that's passed to people like me and Thomas as well.
Yeah.
Really, like, look at what you can do with this and kind of how human and like warm it can be.
Yeah, Finesse was pretty, as I recall, pretty open about using it. And Audtecher are very open about using it.
And now they are, these
days. And it's hard to say exactly. I mean, there's albums, because I just know the Max sounds and the sounds of Max and so well, that like they totally used Max on Confield.
I think by that they were.
For sure. And, I also know a few stories. One from Mark Fell. I'm not allowed to repeat it, but.
Wait a second. Is that the Televon Tel Aviv story? About
no.
Do you know about the Audtecher Square Pusher Aphex Twin arms race?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I know about Josh.
Can you tell us off?
I don't know the arms race story so well. That's one for Josh. You should totally get him on here. I can.
That'd be sick.
But we'll still have to tell us off screen. God,
Josh is a great friend. Honestly,
I thought he had mastered your albums. Yeah,
he's a really good mate. Solid guy. Another one where I'm like, I remember hearing Telephone Tel Aviv on Triple J in Tasmania, and somehow I'm friends, and he comes and stays at my house. Like, I don't know how that happened.
That is insane.
Weird small world. I think for weirdo electronic experiment, we all end up meeting each other eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I know that they all, Mark, Sean, all those guys were basically the second MSP was available. So that there was the first time. So Max was, started at Urcam in 84 and Miller Puckett got it going. David Zeccarelli went to Urcam and worked with Miller on Max in the early days. And David honestly was one of the guys that kept Max alive. In the end, Miller went off to UC San Diego to do PD. And then David wrote MSP, which was Max signal processing. So that was where you could finally process audio in real time in Max. So that's where Max became Max MSP.
Oh, interesting.
And Cycling 74 first released that in 1998. And I believe that, Mark Fell, Sean, all those guys were, I'm sure Square Pusher too and Aphex were just straight on it. And actually I think they were probably at least aware of it, if not already doing some MIDI sequencing prior to MSP coming out. It wouldn't surprise me.
Because by the end of they switched to digital by the end of the night. Because Aphex, he realizes with the Square Pusher stuff he puts out on Reflex, he's like, I have to use a computer to keep up.
There was a whole, and I the arms race went not just at Warp Boys too, but like there was a whole thing going on in the noise scene with Peter and Farmer's Manual and Merzbow. They all did a tour of Japan that was laptops only.
Oh wow, that is sick.
Yeah, like I think it was 99 or 2000. There was a Peter Farmer's Manual.
Oh my God.
Merzbow 3-way tour. They were like, and they played like, I don't know, some insane amount of shows in Japan, like more shows than there is almost cities to play. I think there was 15 shows or something across Japan, and it was pretty much laptops only. Like, yeah.
And that's right after, because Peter at that point, he done I forget what it is, the famous point with Jim O'Rourke, who argues for Mego to receive the experimental award because they finally it's like they've used a laptop, they've shown what we can do with Max here, like this, it's a go. And then,
again, I can't say for sure because I wasn't there. This is I got it from good accounts, but I think there was a lot of exploration between Max, PD, Super Collider, and honestly, they were probably using several. Probably using PD and Max, PD and Super Collider in combination. It was wild too because part of it was like an embracing failure too, because back then crashes were just part of the show. You were running your computer, the steam was coming out the disk drive.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy.
Interesting period. And so that just continued on into the 2000s. Tim Hecker.
and I've even got on the side.
Tim's a longtime Max user. Also uses Popple or Loop, which was like this higher level set of building blocks that was made by this guy Klaus and a whole bunch of collaborators. It still exists now and still kind of runs. But I know Finesse was using that.
Interesting.
But it was like a set of higher building blocks of a combination of Max objects into a single building block that did a thing. But you could still kind of in a modular fashion join them together to do stuff. Yeah.
And then another figure was Keith Fullerton Whitman using for playthroughs. He used other software that doesn't exist and he can't get anymore. And again, I think that contributes to what makes that a fun album to revisit. But Keith's
great.
Huge explorer on that.
Keith's been Keith. And I love these guys. Keith's interesting. He really mixes it up. He'll have laptop, modular, guitar pedals, guitar, all intermixed in there. And he makes it sound so cohesive. And he's just I haven't even heard his whole catalog. His catalog is vast.
When he did a bunch of tape reissues in 2020, I picked him up and I was just cleaning up my room and I found him again. And I'm like, dude's got another 25, 40 albums. I love the cranky material, and if he did more tapes, I'd buy him. That's the only way I want to experience because he just has so much. But it's always, I love his process. I love the desire to talk you through, even if you don't know it. We're pedants or not. We're dummies when it comes to this.
No, Keith was. Keith was leveraging a bunch of early granular Max patches that were kind of infamous for in that they kind of they really were some of the first Max MSP patches that were put out that were available that allowed you to do kind of granular processing without getting the buffer clicks and stuff, which those buffer clicks and all of that kind of zero crossing stuff was just inherently part of early 2000s DSP. It was just in there. There was no isotope to take it out. There was no, it was just part of the music. But some of those, there was a Max patch called Sugar Synth that was, I think it was first released in 99. And it was kind of incredible by a guy called Nabayasu Sekonda. He's from Nagoya. And you can actually still find those patches. Those patches still work inside of the current Max, which is kind of crazy.
Oh, that's sick.
That's some generational stuff there.
Totally. In fact, those kind of patches are so legendary. I feel like in some ways they influence. It's hard to even say. They definitely influenced a lot of music that was put out. Yeah.
Just to ask again, when you're talking about the buffer clicks on that, because it's just like a small noise or something that, it just naturally comes with the kind of limit there of having to load up. And then was that itself also playing into like the cuts and click stuff on a middle plateau at the time? Or
I think so. I mean, it's not a deliberate cut or click. It's essentially where, with granular, it's playing back a very small part of a sample, but it's playing back many copies of it. In almost like a polyphony, like polyphonic kind of way. And if you want to move, if you want to move that selection of the sample, it's okay if you stay on the same selection and don't move, but where that kind of classic ambient sound of like Tim Hecker and Finesse and all those guys comes from is when the selection moves across a piece of a longer sample. It's when that movement happens is when the clicks would come in from like a non-zero crossing point in the audio, so where it doesn't match up, and it would be, just a little audio anomaly. Very easy to get a lot of them back then, and Secunda's patch was one of the first that kind of could transverse a longer piece of audio and not have those clicks. So it was very smooth. It was that classic swelling granular sound.
Oh, wow.
And he released his patch in 1999. I mean, this is like, we've literally only been able to do real-time digital signal processing for
like
barely a year, or two. And all of a sudden you can live process some audio in a granular fashion. That's kind of wild. And I mean, now it's everywhere, and we take it for granted because we have so much power in our computers. But it's kind of wild that was right there and happening 27 years ago.
So I know that you mentioned like Super Collider and stuff as well. Like, what is that like program doing the same sort of thing that you could do with like Max, or like what was that like?
Very similar. Super Collider, I believe, and I haven't spent a lot of time myself with it, but I believe Super Collider and Max can do it now. It couldn't always as of 2011, but I think Super Collider can process audio and DSP on a per sample basis. So if your sampling rate is 48,000 kilohertz, so 48K per second, Super Collider can process every single one of those samples. You can now do that in Max with something called Gen. In Reactor, that was something that Reactor was very strong at as well. Native Instruments Reactor was able to do per sample processing very early on in its infancy. But yeah, Super Collider is more text based, as in Max's kind of Max and PD hold the kind of mantle for visual programming. As in, if you don't want to, you don't really need to write text.
Yeah.
Which is where it differs from Super Collider and some other languages that are in that similar sonic, realm and genres, but you have to kind of want to write stuff as opposed to visually programming. And visual programming now is so common. Now we see it in Touch Designer, and we have all of these. There's even components of it in like DaVinci Resolve and other things like video editing. We're pretty used to it now, but yeah, this concept of joining patch cables together was pretty, Max was pretty early on doing that.
Yeah.
So.
That's sick. I guess where should we move into, Maddie?
I got this one, Thomas. So kind of continuing a little bit down the path line of patches or other kind of pieces of information coming out of this universe. In the mid 2000s, I want to say 2007, if I might be getting that wrong, you formed an Ableton live group in Australia. And I'm curious I about the timing of this because I do library science stuff. I'm wrapping up my master's work on that. And so way back at the start of my stuff, I was looking into like the information needs of music kind of enthusiasts. And there's not a lot of stuff written on this. One article that came from 2006 focusing on electroacoustic composers. And I guess the reason I bring that up, it's like, not that you were interviewed in it, but it asks all these information need questions. Like, what do these composers, need? Or what categories of information do these folks seek out? How interdisciplinary are the needs of this group? And I remember reading again stuff on like just intonation with Horse Lords, how difficult in the mid 2000s it was to find anyone doing information they needed. So I'm curious, it's like, what really spurned that need in the mid 2000s? What were you guys trying to connect? And then how also were you able to like coalesce stuff there?
Yeah, so that's a really good thing to bring up. It was 2006, 2007, around then. And, in Australia, and I think this may have been different elsewhere in the world, but we were literally only a year or two out of dial-up era. We definitely, I was definitely, unless you were at university, if you were at home mid to 04, 05, like you may have still been dialing in kind of stuff. So, surfing forums and that, we were still on power PCs and low power Pentiums back then. We hadn't gotten to the Intel era yet.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so, yeah, just like, it was just word of mouth, and talking to people was so much faster to learn stuff still than YouTube wasn't kicking yet.
Yeah.
Or at least YouTube tutorials. YouTube had been invented, but we weren't watching anything yet. So yeah, it just occurred to me, and I did meet another guy who was really into Ableton as well. And we were like, why don't we start a user group? And we just thought we'd start something locally. And I've kind of always had this kind of, what would I say, like part of my persona, or my part of my, I'm just like, just ask, right? Like the worst someone will say is no, and I'm not going to lose any sleep if someone says no. At least I asked, at least I tried, right? So we started this group, and we thought we'd just keep it local, put the word out, made some flyers, put them around town, and we actually got 15, 20 people there. And, it was incredible actually, like to be in a room and you realize like everyone's at completely different levels. Some guy had read the entire manual and could like say it word for word. But like what would happen was you'd just walk out of that room so inspired, like, because everyone was making different music, but that really worked well, because what it meant was everyone knew different facets of Ableton in different ways they knew different corners of it very well and not so much other corners. So we could all like collectively grow our knowledge. And I was like, well, why don't I reach out to Ableton and see if they want to, like, I don't know, support this in some way or not, right?
Yeah.
So I reached out, and this was also pretty early days of Ableton. They'd only been around for 5-6 years. So I pretty much was talking to Rob and Hanky from Mono Lake, and like, they were very approachable, and they just like sent a box. They're like, we're into it. We'll send you some stuff. They sent some licenses of Ableton. I got home one day from work, and there's a box on my doorstep, huge box, and there's like Ableton banner, Ableton hoodies, Ableton everything, Ableton keychains.
Yeah.
That's in a huge box of merch from Berlin. And they were super supportive. And then I found out, like, we were one of 3 user groups in the world. So it was like Tokyo, New York City, and Brisbane, Australia.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we were like one of the first, like literally one of the first user groups in the world. And so that's why they were so behind it. And, at that point in time, Ableton was still getting established. They were still the underdog we hadn't gone to EDM yet and stuff like that. So they were not infamous yet whatsoever. They were still bundling every single M Audio product, every single, you would get a free Ableton Light, like they were still heavily marketing wherever they could. And so that turned into that was definitely helped me get linked up with Cycling 74, right? So from there, I was still using Max a lot, integrating Max and Ableton. They weren't combined yet. Max for Live didn't exist yet. But I started alpha testing Ableton. So I got a connection there. And then through that, late 2000s, obviously Max for Live became a thing and was in development. And because I was also a Max user and an Ableton alpha user, I was able to test Max for Live before it came into existence. And so that's where I developed relationships with the guys at Cycling 74, which consequently led me to working for Cycling 74. So, but yeah, that period in Brisbane. Honestly, that period in Brisbane was so, important to the development of my creative practice, because like Lawrence English was there. He was holding it down for experimental sound across the whole country, basically, and still does to some degree. He's bringing out
that, yeah, because we talked to Mike Negro, who runs Oxtail Records, and he's moved down to Australia, and Sydney, he's like Lawrence English is the big guy, and then Thomas, our last interview,
Ian Wellman,
Ian Wellman mentioned the impact of Lawrence English on field recordings, on just like approach to sound. And, it's like we talk to different people, we see him show up all the time on labels. For you, like, well, yeah, like what was his impact?
Well, Lawrence is a very generous person, honestly, and he's a stalwart, and without him, I'm not sure experimental music it would exist naturally, but like he's definitely made it quite a bit more, renowned in Australia. And part of it was, in the 2000s, I don't even know how he was doing this. I mean, he was getting funding from the Australian Arts Council and likely some payments from the venues, but still he was bringing out on a regular basis, the world's best experimental musicians to Brisbane and then he would help them tour around Australia. They would go down to Sydney and Melbourne. But being a young, up-and-coming artist there and getting to see these people on a regular basis was just incredible. I'm seeing the best of the best in the field on a monthly basis. And, like one of my first big shows was opening for Tim Hecker. I mean, and so, and that was the other thing, Lawrence would, he would pad out the bill with local artists. So, often local artists were getting to play with these guys that were touring and playing everywhere all over the world. So that was kind of a big deal, and definitely inspirational. And Lawrence was one of the first people that encouraged me to tour abroad, helped me get some contacts in Japan to play shows. That was where I went back there. I was somewhere I was familiar with, but also somewhere I knew had a great music sound scene. So that was some of my first international tours, was to go back to Japan, where I'd first been introduced to, Max and play there. And yeah, honestly, that guy is just, I don't know. He's a conduit. He's a catalyst for so many people's careers, I think. But ultimately, I think Lawrence is just loves sound. It's like, I don't think it's even an option. Bit like a lot of us, right? It's just this thing like we have to do. We don't really have a choice. It's just part of life. But you can have a career and not do it. You know, there's certainly plenty of people who do it and they're hobbits and they don't. But Lawrence, one of these people, like, I don't know, he shares the love, and yeah, and I think everyone really appreciates it too. I mean, you never know. I mean, that's where I'm definitely at that point in my career where it's like the list of people who have either helped me directly or indirectly, or maybe I'm still not even conscious of it, right? They just happen to recommend me and I don't even know that they did that. Like it's really one of those things. So I try to do the same myself wherever I can, because yeah, it is a collective journey. It's like, it cracks me up because I hear people say, "Oh, I'm a solo artist." There's no such thing, really. I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
You might be on stage on your own in a singular moment, but there's probably several people who have helped you get there, and many more. But yeah, that period in Brisbane was insane. In fact, because there was another guy there called Joel Stern, who Joel is, I'm not sure what Joel's up to these days, but he was doing all sorts of stuff too. And there was this, something happened. I forget exactly when it started, but there was a vegan cafe there in West End in Brisbane called The Forest. And these experimental sound gigs started happening out the back of the vegan cafe every Sunday. And this went on for years. It became so well known. The Wire magazine did a 3-page write-up about it.
Wow, that's sick.
The event was called Audio Pollen.
Audio Pollen?
Audio Pollen. If you look it up, you'll probably find something online about it. And it really was insane. And that was another thing. Like, between Lawrence's events, Audio Pollen was like clockwork. It would run every Sunday, rain, hail, or shine. And it's weird because like Brisbane's a bit of a big country town. Like it's it's not a backwater, but it's also not Sydney or Melbourne. But there was like at one point there was almost a show every night. It was like LA. And so yeah, perfect spot to land after finishing university. For me, that was like such an incredible spot to come to and kind of like progress my career for sure. Yeah.
And today, at least if we're getting this right, that career's brought you over to the world of academia.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been interested in the educational side of it all, and just I think inherently as part of who I am. I've never kind of, and speaking of the gatekeeping we were talking about earlier on, like whenever I've learned something, I've been very quick to pass it on. Like why? I don't know. I don't feel any need to keep secrets or keep discoveries. And so, yeah, I've always been teaching or doing some kind of like workshops or like, making videos online, sharing new discoveries. And USC in Los Angeles kind of got to know me through another Max MSP user, Nina Young. She was an associate professor there for a while at USC. She's gone to New York now. Okay. But yeah, they got to know me. It was looking like I might do something with them literally in 2020. And I had to actually go down there for an interview on like March 17th of 2020. Wow.
Yeah.
No.
And that interview never happened.
Yeah.
I think it was March 10th or 11th was when it was insane. Actually, that month was like wild. I was getting ready to go to Berlin to present an Ableton loop.
Oh wow! Yeah.
In Berlin, Ableton, we're about to do a huge loop event. I was about to open for Dan Deacon at like at the Glass House.
Dude, that's sick.
He was having a good 2020 album. Yeah.
He was. He was on a roll. And I was super stoked because my friend, Richard Devine had just opened for him out there in Atlanta. And Rick was like, it was such a sick show. And I was like, cool, I'm about to open for him and I don't know why, I was super excited to play the Glass House because it's such an infamous venue. So I was so excited. That was happening on the Friday. And then I was going to, then I had to go to USC for an interview. I had Loop, and it was like, I remember it was like March 10th was my wife's birthday. I got an email saying the Glass House show was off, right? And they were so funny about it. They were like, we don't want to say it's because of COVID.
Really? That's
weird. It was weird. It was like some weird secret thing. And then I forget. It was like, what's it? But it went from like my plate. I went from being like, how am I going to get all this done in March? To sitting on the sofa being like, what Netflix show should I binge watch next?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
It was kind of wild. And it was a bit of a somber March because I was pretty excited about all of those possibilities. But so fast forward a few years, and Rick Schmunk, who is the chair of the music technology department at USC, just sends me an email out of the blue, like, "Hey, we want you to join us in the music technology department." So they have to go through a pretty strict protocol, but basically he was like, "We want you, so we're going to tell you the morning that we're putting the application up. And you put your application in and we'll pull the listing down immediately," kind of thing.
That's funny.
But also in the meantime, in that momentary listing, another person also got their application in. And then on top of that, the outgoing professor decided that he wanted to not actually leave.
Oh, wow.
So it still ended up being this application. They still had to run a full search then because they had 3 applicants. So, but it ended up being me. So, so I'm in my second academic year there at USC and teaching advanced audio synthesis and live music technology, which is a super fun class. So these kids come in, they're like, we want to play live. And we go through everything from MIDI sync across 2 laptops to integrating Macs to controllerism, how to play live, how to do live visuals, live DMX lighting.
That is sick.
And then they get to play on the big stage at USC Carson, which is like, wow, best PA system. It's in mega stacks with stadium level system. It's kind of incredible. It's pretty awesome.
So, like, what kind of music are these people making that are taking your class? Are they all like doing electronic music, or is it like guitar music too, or like what are they doing?
It varies. So I had a singer-songwriter. I had a young girl singer-songwriter, but she wanted to integrate technology. So we got to go on with some foot controllers and some Macs and some smart automation. And she ripped it. She was like, her live set was so good.
That's sick.
And I had a guy who he's actually an incredible keyboardist and producer. And but he really wanted to be in control of the full thing, right? And so they have a pretty locked down system at USC in the live room. So we're not allowed to tap into the DMX lights. So I'm like, well, let's do your own lights. So he got his own lights, and I hooked him up and taught him how to do DMX. And he did this live show where he's like fully in control of the visuals and the lights and everything. And yeah, I had all over the place, from very experimental to oh, these guys, this kid's gonna be huge at some point. Like the talent, the level of talent is outrageous. And the quality of the music they're producing already is scary.
Yeah.
But it's like even by the time they get to USC, I think they're already extremely talented, and they've come out of they're the cream of the crop. But it's like part of my job is helping them, show them stuff, show them possibilities, and helping them join the pieces together. Like they have the talent, but they're not sure what to do with it yet. You know what I mean? It's like getting it's like being given a Ferrari, F12 or whatever, like, but not knowing how to drive it yet. Like they have the talents there. It's very interesting. It's got me really thinking about craft and talent a lot. Like, because some of these kids have been some of them have been programming for 10 years when they come to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So one of the girls in the live performance tech class, she was computer science major. She was already writing C++ and stuff. And she wanted to do live coding, a live performance that was live coded. So she ended up using a program called Sonic Pi, and she got coding with that. And her set was wild. It was like quasi EDM techno breakcore, like
that sounds sick
with visuals. It was wild. It was wildly good.
So are you teaching mostly like graduate level classes, or is it like?
No, I have everything from juniors to grad kids.
Okay, sick.
So and then I'm advising some PhDs as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so on top of those classes, I'm also doing some one-on-one instruction and advisement for masters and doctorates.
Cool.
Yeah.
So do you have to I know at least like when you're at like a research university, you have to like do research to work there. Do you have to do research?
I don't have to. Okay. I don't have to. So yeah, which is kind of good. I mean, I'm actually not aware of anyone in my department that's actively researching right now. But yeah, I mean, that whole area is fascinating to me. It's something I like to explore. It definitely feels like I'm still finding my feet in some ways. Like my first year, I think they were very much like let him settle in kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because this semester and this academic year has been a lot busier in terms of like what is being asked of me and like, that kind of thing. It's like, okay, so you guys gave me the red carpet the first year and now it's like, let's really make him work. But it's good. I mean, what I love about it is, it's the other end of the spectrum to where I am with Max and with like working with established companies or established artists, right? It's really great. These young people coming into my classes, they're literally just starting to navigate the world as young adults. What are we doing? What does my sound even look like? What's my career look like? And there's like no jadedness. They're just, enthusiastic about sound. So it's really great to be able to be there and see that, and definitely be at that stage where it's like the level of progress and development I see across 15 weeks of a semester is just outrageous. It's like, oh my God, like the way they absorb, ideas. And it's interesting because you have, everyone's still at a different level. They're all musically across a broad spectrum. But you generally hit the mark with all of them throughout. You see it. You just got to wait. You just like show them enough things, show them different stuff, and then you see the light bulb go off, and it's like they're off. It's wild. Yeah,
that is sick. Well, I think we have a few more questions here before we wrap up. I mean, Maddie, which ones did you want to?
Well, we'll get into the final kind of third or final stretch here. Mostly because we've talked about literally everything else, and we keep tiptoeing around the fact that, Tom, you are a recording artist with several albums. Some have been released in the past. I checked out a couple of your most recent releases, Failed Attempts at Silence, and the 2020 release.
With Third Order and Chaos.
Yes. And I mean, with Failed Attempts at Silence, hearing that you opened for Tim Hecker is like another little like light bulb there for kind of some, because again, Max MSP work, it's doing a lot of stuff. But I was listening to it in a study room at the library today, and I love its ability to go between kind of a foreboding and ominous to something that's really reverent and kind of blissed out over 90 minutes. It's super relaxed and in control of what it's going for. But this 2020 release, and you mentioned it in those liner notes there of like, hey, this has taken me back to my early DSP days. You know, we're going to go from noise to, you know, actual semblance of like, hey, unity.
Right.
But also, again, mastery of time on this one. And on your website, you talk about just kind of being interested in time. And I'm curious for you how your relationship with time you think's developed over 20 years on those albums. What like sonically, as you even revisit your work, kind of that means to you.
Yeah, I think it was definitely my early years. I was in a hurry in that I wanted to get stuff out much faster. I was just in a hurry in general. And definitely like slowed down as I've gotten older. Those two albums are like in some ways really, they were definitely like Bestowed Order on Chaos. Parts of it were definitely in the making before the pandemic hit. But man, that album really just came together between like March and September. And in fact, the final parts of it were completed in some weird kind of crossover between leaving LA and moving to the mountains, which was kind of interesting because I didn't even write some of that final stuff. I didn't even complete in what I would call a comfortable studio work room or whatever. It was, spare room at my mother-in-law's kind of stuff on headphones. But I think that's part of the beauty of it. It's like I knew what I wanted to do. I could do it anywhere essentially. And I want to kind of just address that those two albums are really different. One I consider to be ambient, one I consider to be more IDM, experimental beat, kind of algorithmic exploration kind of. And it's funny, I spent many years trying to create the Tom Hole sound, right? Because, I definitely had some mentors who were like, make your sound, develop your sound. But, at a certain point, it felt uncomfortable. Like, and I think it is sage advice for a lot of people, right? But I just, from my own personality, it was a friction point, and it actually was stopping me from making, or not making. It was stopping me from releasing music.
Yeah, I could see that. It
felt like I could only release a certain style, and I really love dense ambient. Abstract, ambient abstract noise verging on drone, but I also really love like broken beat, IDM. Why can't I make both? And I can make both, and there's no rules. And then I realized, like, definitely now these days, what has kept my career relevant is like my constant enthusiasm for exploring sound and exploring the weirder side of sound. And when I get, called up by companies, and I'm doing some stuff for a company in Melbourne, Australia now, actually, Melbourne Instruments, and they're, they don't want me to make your standard batch of presets. They want the weird Tom Hole presets, that's what's actually allowed me to still be relevant 20 years later. So I really liked both those albums, and I put them out in succession in the way that I did. And they both went really well, like in terms of like, how they were received. Yeah.
No, I literally had just sent the Chaos in to order one. I was like, hey, recommending if you guys like tech or you like noise, you like watching something go from like, dissonance to unity. And a couple of my friends that are like really into Autechre were happy, but I've also got guys that love Mirages and Radio Amor Tim Hecker, and their bits I like tiptoeing around, and I'm like, yes. So even like just those as artists that I'm hearing on it, two different ends of the spectrum for that, and I'm so happy to like see that in the catalog.
Yeah. Tim, meaning honest, I already I think I already was listening to some Tim Hecker because of Lawrence prior to him coming out. Prior to me, for him, meeting Tim for the first time was definitely influential. Super down to earth guy. We've since hung out several times. Really sweet guy. And I think when I opened for him, he just released or was about to release Harmony and Ultraviolet. And there's just, coming from this metal background and then this like fascinated by the noise music scene. Yeah. And then also like having spent many hours listening to artificial intelligence, I just I couldn't believe how Tim was able to make something so beautiful, but so brutal and dense at the same time.
It was the first Tim for me. Well, no, that's not true. Cause I had listened to Radio more on MP, just like on YouTube, but it was the first cranky order I made.
Yes.
And that was I'm like, I'm going to get this Tim Hecker. And starting with it, I was like, oh, we're in.
Yeah.
It still remains my favorite one he's done. And I've talked to people that come out of metal and they're like, kind of like half jokingly, they're like, hey, this is the best shoegaze album, right? And I'm like, yes, yeah, actually, like, fuck it, man, you're right. Let's just do it. But I think that sound that he has on that, it connects super well with. He tapped into something that feels very universal. Because also, it was like, and it was the same thing I got with Aphex. I grew up with Half-Life 2, and the style of Half-Life 2, the Valve style, really aesthetically had a huge impact on me subconsciously. And it's like, that's why I liked Aphex, and that was why I liked Tim Hecker.
Yeah.
Because, like it sounded like the Citadel. Yeah. I was like, if someone made an album that sounds like that, sweet, let's go hang out.
Yeah. Oh. It's like naturally all of those things are an influence on me, and it's so funny when you're a young artist. Like I feel like you have to pretend like you're not influenced by anything, and I'm original. But like, how can you be when you hear this stuff and how your brain works, and it's so much things that are subconsciously influencing you as well. But yeah, it's like a big breakthrough for me, and it doesn't feel like it was even that, 5, 6, 7 years ago, just being like, fuck it. I'm making my own. I'm making music how I want, when I feel like, and like, I'm not trying to shoehorn everything into the same genre all the time, because it's not who I am. Like, and yeah, I'll be honest, maybe it has affected my career in ways not maybe it would be better if I'd cohesively made albums similar for the last 20 years. But, I've been
just do a reissue series and, do like with 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Halo. Like this is my Halo one.
Yeah. I mean,
38 to 42.
Yeah, totally. I mean, but I think, something definitely as I get older, it's like, well, I've just, I basically, when you're on the deathbed eventually, which is we're all going to get to, if I can look back and just have the least amount of regrets possible, then I'll be happy, because I think, there's nothing worse than living a life where you're, trying to be someone else or trying to be something else. Because I think it will catch up with you eventually. Eventually you'll be like, oh man, I've been living a lie. I'm not an ambient artist after all. I should have made that IDM album.
Yeah, right.
And again, looking at some of the footage that you've posted, your live shows I'm assuming there's a massive eclecticism that you can go between that. From what I had heard in an interview I'd done years ago, you do incorporate some field recordings or a little bit of tape on some of your projects. Do you do that as well for the live shows? Just
for sure. And there'll be beatless sections. I mean, Thomas got to see some of it where it's like a crazy noise section. And yeah, maybe that, like, thinking about it, like, I get put on a bill with the guys that only play beats, and then I drop into some like brutal feedback noise section, right? Then I come out of it with some like, 3-4 beat section. Like, they're like, why did we book this?
Yeah.
But that's okay. I don't get invited back. I had a good time.
Yeah.
And some of the crowd's mind was expanded, perhaps, or not, or melted.
That's so
but yeah,
funny.
it's definitely one of those things where it's like, no matter how much music knowledge I have, or theory, or like expertise on that side of things, I know what's required to make a pop album. But at the end of the day, I am always coming from this, more like art school conceptual background, right? And so therefore I'm gonna not see some limitation in dropping some weird, crazy feedback in the middle of a 4/4 or something. Like, yeah. For me, I love seeing what the limits are of sound, and I'm still not gotten there yet. Like, yeah. Which is why you'll see me at IDM shows, why you'll see me at pop shows, why you'll see me at noise shows. I find it,
that kind of segs into a little bit of the wrap up stuff. Just music like 2024 for maybe even 23 that's been thrilling you the most, that you're like all in on.
So late last year, and some of these, funnily, so mentioning my students, they're actually quite inspiring, right? Because they're not trying to impress me, right?
Yeah.
And I often ask them, like, what are you listening to? Some of the first stuff I do at the beginning of the semester is like, what's an artist that influences you? What's 3 albums you're listening to right now? And so the beginning of last year's semester, a lot of them were saying Sophie.
Oh, sick.
Yeah,
which I absolutely love, and didn't expect from like production major students. I expected the mainstream, right? Like, and Sophie is actually the artist that they bring up the most, which I find fascinating. I think Sophie's influence is going to continue on for quite a lot longer than now.
Yeah.
And they, EPROM, they're saying EPROM, and I'm like, what the hell? He's up there in Portland. He's a longtime bass music guy, but like his level of intricacy and sound design is just something else. His album Synthesism, EPROM, EPROM. His album Synthesism is excellent. That came out last year, and I guess that's why some of my students brought him up. He was on my radar because actually Josh Eustace, Telephone Tel Aviv, was dropping some EPROM in some of his like hybrid DJ sets. So he was definitely, it wasn't like I was not familiar with EPROM, but when my students started bringing him up, I was like, well, let me dive in a little more. And then he works with this guy, and I think maybe even mentored him a bit. And now he's quite well known. G Jones. But in the late teens, they collabed a lot on these EPs called the Acid Discs.
Yeah.
So, which are really good, like a lot of classic 303 breakcore,
that's sick.
Acid House. So these guys I find fascinating because they're in this kind of bass music scene, but they're in this like weird quasi-experimental realm of it. But getting pulled in to play some pretty big festivals. And there's even some noise stuff. Like even Abraham has this collab with it's called Shades.
That's the album, or that's who we collab with?
That's their name of their. Let me just find it here.
Alex Perez.
Yes.
I'm looking at it. This is all stuff. Whoa, this is cool.
And this album has some pretty hefty, we're talking like, this is they're doing there's some noise breakdown sections in this album. From a Vein is the album. It's so funny. It says dance. It's coming up as dance music here in Apple Music, but it's some fun stuff. Definitely worth checking out, all these guys.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll definitely check them out. I don't think I've heard of any of those guys, actually.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there.
It's not even, because I'm thinking of like other like major production things like internet trend. It's like you had Ballet Funk, and then this year's Sexy Drill. I've seen like more talk about those, but whoa, this just comes from a completely different realm. I'm so happy to like hear about it.
Yeah, check it out.
Sure.
I mean, if you actually look at the More by Shades, you look at the album covers, you're like, oh, this totally looks like this could. If someone told you it was a noise band, you would totally believe it.
Yeah.
And then, but the G Jones like EPs between G Jones and Abraham, man, they all just take you back to the drum and bass like acid days.
Oh, that's actually sick. Yeah, that's cool.
They're so good. And I actually went to see them at the Palladium. They did a show there. It was actually G Jones's album launch. And Abraham played and got to meet them, and they're super, just like, super nice guys.
Some chillers, yeah.
Love sound. So it's like very easy to relate to.
Yeah.
He actually went there with Josh, Telephone Tel Aviv. Because he was definitely onto these guys before me, and that's how I was like, between him and my students, I was like, well, what am I missing out on here? I've got to dive in. So, that's definitely a fascinating area of listening right now. What else? I mean, a lot of it's just been the classics. I always like those old Autech or NTS sessions.
I
gotta do the run. I think next year, because I'm going to be taking a full-time job, I'm going to spend like a chunk of time just going through them.
Yeah, the NTS sessions are great. They're really solid.
When I was in Idlewild before the festival, I went to like one of the record stores there, and I found the Autech Repeal sessions while I was over there.
What?
Yeah, it was sick.
Wow.
I've got... Oh wait, I'll be right back for a second.
He's going to the library.
Yeah, Maddie's gotta check the library.
the new Mono Lake album is really good. Been listening to that.
Those are mine too.
Nice. The new Mono Lake album by Robert Henke is really solid too. It's called Studio.
That's sick. I don't know if I know Mono Lake.
Yeah, I mean Robert is Mono Lake's been around forever. And I don't know if Ableton Live would exist without Robert.
Oh wow, yeah. I'm reading this quick Google bio and it mentions Ableton.
Yeah,
like
so
right
Mono
after that,
Lake Mono Lake was originally a duo, and it was Robert and Gerhard Bales. Gerhard has been the CEO of Ableton since
wow,
started.
That's crazy.
And then Robert has continued the project for the last 25 something years.
Dude, that is crazy.
Yeah. That new album's really rewarding.
What's that one called again?
It's just called Studio. Mono Lake Studio.
Oh, sick. I'm gonna listen to that actually. That is super cool.
Speaking of drum and bass or jungle, did you hear the what was it? Just the Tim Reaper and Cloaky in full effect on Hyperdub?
Oh no, I haven't.
I think I'm gonna get the CD of this one and make a little hyperdub cart because I need to. But
Nice.
it is to celebrate 20 years. They put out a jungle album.
Heck
Oh,
yeah.
sick.
And it's great from the samples I heard.
I'd say another album that I love, Surgeon.
Oh,
Anthony Childs.
Anthony
Surgeon.
Childs.
He released an album, Crash Recoil, last year. That's really good.
About this one.
Yeah, Crash Recoil. It's really good.
Oh, and it's a Tresser. Oh, yeah. There's a really great Tresser Detroit Berlin comp from this year.
Yeah.
The DJ Stingray stuff was so good.
I mean, I've always loved his style of techno. He doesn't miss.
The other final question, because we had talked about the Warp stuff a little bit here, just like favorite Warp release. You can, and also if you need to just do by decade, you're welcome.
Okay, let me look here. This is tough.
And you can list off again other key ones that you got on listservs or stuff in the 90s. I'm just curious again about people's like experiencing that in real time.
Yeah, well, let's see. This is you're really putting me on the spot here. Wow, they only have 752 releases ever.
That is actually a ton.
Picking one from the mid 90s is where it's really freaking hard because there's so many there. Between LFO, like LFO, I mean, they were just so important. And that's where I get mixed up, right? Because I have this immense respect for, maybe their album wasn't the biggest, right? But like then you read the backstory about like how LFO influenced this other Warp artist and this and that. So then I joined the dots and realized we wouldn't have this without that. And
yeah.
I was listening to this one today as well. And it's like one of those things where at some point I'm going to have to write something about it and listen to the rest of the catalog because Mark Bell seemed really out of time with what he was doing. I love the release because it doesn't connect to the hardcore continuum and it's doing its own thing. So it's like, that's why you could have ambient techno or like there's a kind of starting there or there's like one cut that sounds like Massive Attack, just atmosphere wise. There's We Are Back sounds really close to again some of the ballet funk stuff that's happened. And then Freeze has the LaBradford remix. So there's also like a question about where does this stuff fit into like post rock, like 90s post rock conversation, just genre wise, it's really open for claiming. And I think that's so much to chase.
I mean, definitely Amber, just something about it was also, but Amber was such a gateway for me to so much other stuff.
Bargain Bin Find for me. And it's not my favorite of the 90s from them.
Right.
Definitely not, but whoa. I think that's so cool.
Early Speedy J. I mean, Cornfield probably for the 10 decade of 2000s. Cornfield just because it just paved the way. It's still like this album that I feel like if someone dropped it tomorrow, people would be like, it's like it's a little timeless in that there's definitely stuff happening in there that was of the time stylistically, but like sonically, I don't think it can be dated.
Yeah.
It again, just like with the Sophie stuff, I remember when I first listened and I felt this is like Sophie picked up and ran with this kind of stuff, but for pop, because Autechre came from like a hip hop background and never wanted to do that. But I really felt that in there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, then in the 10s, I see my old friend Lorenzo Seni here. It's not even his album Quantum Jelly is so good on Mego.
Oh,
just to digress slightly.
Yeah.
From the challenge. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Ufa Booblem. If that's how you say it. Square Pusher's album, 2012.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. I've got his one on hold at the line.
Ufa Booblem. I literally never even. The only thing I ever think of is him with the LED face.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have a funny story. It was like 2012, 2013. Hardfest was on in LA and EDM was in full swing. Skrillex was headlining.
Oh, so yeah.
Skrillex was headlining, crazy thing, going up in a big machine. And like, who else was on the bill that day? Skrillex, I wasn't so interested in that day.
Is it like the Hard Summer or whatever?
Hard Summer.
Maybe it was a 2012 lineup. Yeah, Skrillex headlined in 2012 right here. Yeah, Square Pusher's on there too.
Okay, that's it. That's the one. So I went along. So I was actually doing sound design for Fast and Furious 4. Oh no, Fast and Furious 5 with Lucas Vidal was the composer, and I was doing a whole bunch of random experimental weird electronics for that.
Great film. Thank you
for that film. Fast Five.
Dude, that's sick.
It's where they blow up the 747.
No, that's on Fast 6.
Oh, I'm getting them mixed up. You can tell I'm getting lost. I can't remember dates anymore. So it was the one where it's the one where they blow the 747 up, because I actually saw the whole entire film as an animation. Because there was such a huge budget and obviously they can't blow up multiple 747s, right? Because that gets really expensive. So they can only do it once. A lot of shots in that film, they had one take to do it in. We had the animation to compose to before they even shot some of that stuff. So we were composing to an entire animation before we even got to see the actual live footage.
Oh, wow. Which
was, for me, really insightful. I was like, wow, they actually it was really funny animation because very blocky. It wasn't like a finished production animation, but it just cracks me up to realize so many of those films have a feature length animation that no one will ever get to see. It was interesting because it would, even in the animation, was have the camera angles. It would have lots of telemetry about what lenses they're going to use to shoot it. Anyway, Lucas had gotten obsessed with EDM.
Yeah.
So he was like, I'm getting us tickets. You're coming to Hard Summer.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I don't even know if I want to go. And I hadn't seen that Square Pusher was on the bill. I missed it for some reason. I looked it up and I saw Skrillex at the top. I was like, I don't know if I really want to go.
Yeah.
But I went along anyway, and oh man, Square Pusher just floored the entire audience. It was
when he had his band.
No, it was just him, but it was full Square Pusher LED album tour, so huge LED, glitched out visuals, had his LED helmet on. He came out from around, he played live bass for a bit. It was insane. It was so good. It destroyed a lot of people there. A lot of people were just there for EDM.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say.
But he was pretty high up the bill. So when he came out, he really wrecked some people.
Yeah.
It was so good. And I was just for me, it was the savior of the day. I was having a bit of a tough time before that because, man, I'm getting a bit over the big rise, the drop, the rise, the drop, the rise, the drop, the old formula.
The dubstep, yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of man. And, I'm just having a few beers. I wasn't pinging or anything. It was just but Square Pusher was so good. And then another highlight, unexpected, was Neuro.
Oh, yeah.
Neuro were really good. And I think part of it was that they had a full-on Moog Model D on stage with them. They were up in a big DJ booth that moved around and everything. But they also had live vocalists. So it was, Neuro were actually pretty incredible. So yeah, that I'd have to say that's my album for the 210s because I've definitely listened to that album a lot.
Sick. Yeah, I feel like I would have never expected Square Pusher to play a Hard Summer festival.
I think he was on tour. He was playing some like bottom of the hill or something in San Francisco, right? Like not even a very big venue. And I figured something like maybe his tour manager got him hooked up on the Hard Summer build because he didn't play he didn't play any other LA shows, like a solo Square Pusher only show. Probably had to sign. Probably had to agree to not play within a certain radius for that festival.
Sure.
But it would have been a decent paycheck for sure.
100%.
I imagine that's why he probably took the deal.
Especially because he was developing the LED stuff like right at the time, and he had the back catalog as well to be like, I know where my show's going to be going because I want to see him.
Yeah.
I want to see him.
I'd be so down to see Square Pusher. That'd be sick.
All the work.
It was huge. Stadium PA, it was definitely a great way to see him. I remember Lucas being like, who is this guy?
Really?
And I was like, honestly, Lucas, without him and so many of his peers, we wouldn't have Skrillex and Nero and all these other guys.
For sure.
Like he really appreciated the history there, like these guys have paved the way for EDM. Like
I know it's funny. I revisited a bunch of the like golden age of EDM kind of classic songs, just like a massive mix spanning like 7 years. There's some great ones in there, and the Skrillex stuff kind of deserves to be like graded at like a different standard where it's like he really loved his IDM, and these cuts can like there's a different rigor that I almost give, and I really just love appreciate that EP.
As we've gotten to know Skrillex more, the guy's definitely very versed in his history of electronic music, and like I think he likes Karen Hippen's from Fortet. Like he quotes like one of the tracks from Rounds as being his best favorite electronic music track of all time.
Wow.
And as once he had the means, he like was bringing Karen and Fortet into the studio, and now those guys are doing like big Coachella with Fred again and stuff and whatever. Like
that's crazy. Yeah,
I'm assuming at least this is a funny way then kind of maybe to end this. You saw the video of Fortet at Lollapalooza this year. Yes. Yep. And again, he's closing with a really abstract Autechre number. That's right. It's just Max MSP stuff.
Yeah. I mean, right there, I think is a great example of just, everyone's doing their thing, but it's like some weird semi-functional big family of like, so it's always funny to me when I do strike someone, and it's not so often, but it's like I do strike them like where I only listen to noise, or I only listen to IDM and everything else is garbage. And it's like, oh, you're just missing out. Sorry. I feel bad for you. Like, because it is. It's all so entwined, and it's funny. Like technology plays a part in that too. Like and whether it be what technology enables or whether it be what technology limits, right? Because between hardware and software, we can only go so far, and like people search for new ways of doing the same things or new ways of processing sound, working with sound. It's interesting, but I think being able to do stuff, just be able to like intermix this stuff and continue kind of that exploratory path. It's just so exciting. Like I feel like we're still in the early days. I still really feel like we're in the early days of electronic music. Like, we had the years of like subverting what were meant to be like bass player replacements, like aka the TB-303, right? Was just meant to replace the bass player in your band, and the drum machines, which were meant to replace the drummer in your band. But as those, a lot of the early electronic music was subverting those things into dance music. And then we got software and digital DSP. And now we're in like, I don't know, the third or fourth phase of electronic music as far as technology and what it enables people to do. Yeah, it's very interesting. I feel like it's still definitely early days. Because there's stuff I do in DSP now that was impossible to do 10 years ago, and it's funny, I see this again to mention my students, like the way that they even compose is so much different to the way that I started composing, and I actually have to remind myself that I can do this now because I have habits.
Yeah.
Anyone, but the way that they stack stuff, the way they stack stuff in tracks, the way that they stack tracks, they don't see this limitation, or they don't experience this limitation that was something that you constantly had to work with 10 years ago, because you'd crash your computer, you'd crash the software, you wouldn't be able to play it back because it would stutter. And now they're just like, what do you mean? Like, they don't see any of that. They haven't experienced any of that. So their approach to it is very different to that. And I have to remind myself, I can do that now too. Like, it's of habits.
They're teaching you now.
Yeah, no, totally. I'll be like, what are you doing there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Like, yeah. And it's because they don't see any rules, or they don't. And it's not that I see rules either, but it's like I'm definitely growing up with limitations that don't exist anymore because technology has surpassed those limitations. So they definitely show me stuff.
Sick. Yeah, well, I'm excited to see where electronic music takes us in 10 years. We'll see.
Totally. We're going places. We're going places for sure.
John, this has been a deeply inspiring conversation. Thanks for taking us across, 30 years of your situated knowledge, all through little tangents and stuff.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad you guys are interested. I mean, like I mentioned at the top of the show, like I'm just honestly just thankful to still be doing what I do and somehow still be relevant, and that people are interested in it, and it's exciting. I mean, yeah, I still think back to when I first really got into sound, and like that feeling is still there, that like excitement, that thirst for experimentation. Yeah, it's never really gone away. Hope it never goes away.
Awesome. Well, I guess we have one question here, Maddie. Do you want to take it? Do you want me to take it?
I think you got this, Thomas.
Okay. All right, Tom. Well, we have one more question. I guess before we ask this, where can people keep up with all things Tom Hall, I guess, if people want to find your music or whatever?
So I have a website, tomhall.xyz. But it tends to be more like stuff I'm publishing, like patches I'm sharing that. Social media, Twitter, Instagram. My handle is Tom Hall Sonics. So that's a good spot, and that's generally the place I'm not really on Facebook much anymore. I'm kind of given up on that.
Yeah. As most people have, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like a weird boomer wasteland now.
Yeah, it's
like,
weird.
I don't need to know what my mom is doing for the 10th time today in Tasmania.
Yeah, yeah, for real.
But yeah, Instagram, Twitter, for lack of a better space. And that's kind of where I post if I'm playing shows or stuff like that. Is a good spot. So yeah, Tom on all social media, Tom Hall Sonics, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram.
Sick.
And I do actually have a show coming up. So actually it's at 2020 Arts in Los Angeles.
Hell yeah.
October 28th, Monday, October 28th. It's actually a pretty epic show. And not to toot my own horn, but there's a guy who's just played Mutek, Tetsu Collective from New York City, Toru Mizuno from Tokyo. It's a truly international bill. It's going to be pretty wild. For everyone does these wild AV full immersion kind of performances. So October 28th at 2020 Arts.
There's a lot of good shows coming up there. I know.
Yeah.
Brian Foote just announced one, and I might.
Yeah, I saw.
I know. I want to go to that too.
Brian's great. I love Brian and his work at Cranky, but also Leech is such an awesome performance.
You might see me if you go. I might be there. I'm driving up right after work, I think, and I'm going to hit up Crawford's for some chicken, and then.
Hell yeah!
That Crawford, shout out to that bar.
Nice. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we have one more question here. Anyways, are you ready, Tom?
All right, let's do it.
A rat is going to jump into your mouth. Do you want this rat to jump into your mouth head first or butt first, and why?
Head first, so I can just like get it over and done with. Just rip its head off.
Oh, dude, I love that. That's sick.
Yeah, I'm just gonna chomp down. Get it before it can do anything.
Going back to your metal roots, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
brutal.
Yeah, I think it's fearless answer here.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's not that hard for me to picture. I grew up on a farm in Tasmania. I experienced rats on different levels to perhaps your average person.
You know those rats.
Yeah, between them getting stuck in the car or the cat bringing them home decapitated to one of the gruesome rat stories I have is like, and it's like not really gruesome, but it was just like, oh, wow, this is intense. It was like lifting a piece of like corrugated iron, right? And there's like 50 rats under there, like, just going everywhere, and you just want to make sure none of them are going up your
pants.
Your trouser sleeve.
That is crazy.
Just kind of like make you feel queasy, kind of.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm also just aware of how tough they are. Like, so yeah, that's why I'm like, if it's going in my mouth, I don't want it to go any further. And so we need to finish it up pretty fast.
I feel that they are. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're tough. They're so tough. Like, oh man.
Rats are bomb proof, kind of, you know what I mean?
They're almost there with cockroaches. Like, in terms of what they can do, what they can handle.
Yeah.
What they can take on. It's kind of wild. They can also get pretty huge.
They can. Yeah, they really can.
I remember I'd never really seen, I think it was like New York, first time to New York and finally seeing like a New York City rat. Like, I was like, oh my God, that is a rat. Like, it was so big, it was so fat, it could barely move. And it was just honking around on the streets, getting whatever food it could get.
Yeah.
Just wild.
Dragging the pizza down the subway steps type.
Yeah, thing. Or attacking cats, because cats are like running away. Like
oh my God, that is crazy. Actually,
yeah, I've seen a video with a New York City rat attacking a cat.
That is crazy.
Like, screw this. Like, I'm out of here. Like,
that is wild.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like you got a rat also that's coming to you right now. Oh.
She's not a rat.
What's her name?
I didn't know if it was a dog or cat. That's so cute.
Yeah. No, she is like divides her time between my wife and I. She goes and hangs out with her for half the day and comes. She loves the studio. Funnily, doesn't really matter what kind of sound I'm making. She's into it. Like, it amazes me too. She'll go to sleep and there'll be some weird FM feedback or something where I'm like, for sure there must be some ultrasonic frequencies that would drive her nuts, but she'll be sound asleep and I'm like, okay.
That is so funny.
Yeah, I know. It cracks me up because sometimes I'm like, whoa, I can't imagine she can handle this, but she does.
Yeah.
And she's always welcome to leave. And then the garbage truck will go by and she'll freak out.
She'll freak out, yeah. She's just used to your noise. She loves it.
I think so. I mean, so we rescued her, and she spent the first few days under the bed, just kind of acclimating. And then actually the first time I ever interacted with her, I was actually in the studio at the computer working on some sound, and I just heard this like little chirp kind of sound, but she did it as she was launching onto my lap. And
oh, really?
yeah, and then just settled right down, went to sleep as I continued to work on sound, and it's kind of been that much the case ever since.
Yeah.
I've even caught her sleeping in the studio, like hanging out and sleeping when I'm not being in there myself. Like, so I think it's a place she associates with, being safe and comfortable. And
that's whatever. What I was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cute.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And funnily, I jokingly say she's my like co-producer or collaborator, but in fact, there's something interesting about it. Like if she is hanging out in the studio, somehow it is easier just to put in those extra hours of work to keep pushing, and because you have some, you have a bit of companionship, you have someone there that's hanging out late into the night. Yeah.
Cute.
She's always down for it.
Well, that's all we have for today. Thanks for tuning into TBD on KCSB FM 91.9 every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. This has been Tom Hall. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Thomas, Maddie, thank you.